Good morning. Continuing on with some of the lessons I learned when I read the book by Ben Sass, Nebraska Republican Senator Ben Sass, called The Vanishing American Adult. Wow. It was an eye opener for me. Some questioned why I read this book since I'm not a parent. But when I read the book, it was amazing how I saw so much of myself and the way that I was raised in this book. And it wasn't a pleasant experience. In fact, today's show, I am actually going to be throwing myself under the bus quite a bit and admitting that the way I was raised, even though it was with much love and good intentions, it did me no favors and did not create the adult that I wish I had been raised to be. Instead, I was raised to become a childish adult. The Peter Pan syndrome, so to speak. Now, we all remember Peter Pan. He was the boy who refused to grow up. But Sass in his book explains that children today are being enabled to be Peter Pan. And in my case, Paula Pan. Parents are enabling their children to remain children well into their adult years. And there are many reasons for this. I'm going to start out with a story that Sass shared, a true story, of a young woman in her 20s who was hired for a full-time job, 9 to 5, and her employer started noticing that she was cutting out of work early, like 2, 3 times a week. So they called her into the office and they said, the hours here are 9 to 5, and we noticed that you've either been coming in a little late or cutting out early, and, the other employees, that's not fair to them. They're here 9 to 5. Oh, she said, I'm so sorry. It won't happen again. That's cool. Okay, great. A week later, it's 2:30 in the afternoon, and she's packing up and walking out the door. And the employers called her in the next day and said, well, we just had this discussion. You left at 2:30 yesterday. Oh, she said, no, see, my Pilates class is usually at 6 p.m., but the teacher changed it to 3 p.m. yesterday. So that's why I left early. And the employers were like, no, see, wait, your job that you're getting paid to do is 9 to 5. And the woman looked him right in the face, like incredulous. Well, I didn't think that meant I had to miss Pilates. Really? Seriously? You're fired? I mean, come on. This is the attitude of young adults today. Human resource managers, and I've talked about this before, report that the questions that applicants ask are not the questions that applicants asked 25 years ago or even 10 years ago. This new age of childish adults, they ask, how much am I getting paid and when's my first vacation? They want to make more money and work less hours. That's all they care about. They don't care about benefits. They don't want to pay for health insurance. They don't care about any of that. They just want to make money, buy stuff, and take vacation time or sick days. They always want to know about that. Before they even start working, they're planning their first vacation time, paid vacation days. I'm going to be referring to notes here because I have a lot of notes on the chapters that Sass discussed this. And I also have my own personal stories, which make me cringe to this day. So, Ben Sass sent his 14-year-old daughter one summer, to work on a ranch. Really work on the ranch. And the first couple days, it was funny. He got emails from her saying how tired she was, how she had to get up at 7 or 5 in the morning and then go to bed at 7 at night. But then after a couple days, the letters changed. And it was, I saw a baby calf born today. I learned how to drive a tractor. We went out and we collected eggs from the chicken. All these experiences she was having. and the things she was learning about work that was done because it needed to be done, and everybody pitched in together to do it. And it was a wonderful experience for her. So then Ben Sass and his wife started telling their friends about this wonderful summer experience for 1 month that his daughter had. And one of his friends, who was a lawyer, looked at him and said, "You know, you and your wife just broke like every child labor law on the books." What? Oh, yeah. See, even the government keeps our children soft. The labor laws. So it's not okay for his daughter to work a 12-hour day on a ranch, having great new experiences, learning to be self-sufficient and get things done because they need doing. But it is okay for kids to be stuck in a public school classroom for 8 hours a day, listening to someone else teach them things the government thinks they need to know, and then assigning 3 or 4 hours of homework every night. Well, that's a 12-hour day too. And yet that's okay because the government says that school is important, but actual work experience, well, we need to save that for later. They'll have plenty of time to work. Avoid work at all costs. But school, that's important. Being taught things that you'll never use, as I talked about on Tuesday's show. You're never going to use some of the stuff that they force you to learn in public school. You can sit in a public school classroom all day long, listening to a teacher drone on and on about something you have no interest in, and you will never use after you pass that class. And then you can do the 3 hours of homework when you get home, but you can't go work on a ranch for a month in the summer and learn self-sufficiency. Learn how to organize your time. Learn that if a cow needs milked, nobody else is around, you milk that cow. And that when you milk that cow, it's important, because you're either going to drink that milk or you're going to sell that milk for income to support yourself. I think that's a much better lesson than the classes I described that I had to take in freshman year of college. You want to talk about a biology class, work on a ranch. That'll teach you some biology. So let me cross that off. But yeah, it is funny how our own government wants our children to be soft. And let's talk about summer jobs. And I'm going to start sharing some of my own personal stories with you. A lot of my friends had summer jobs when I was a teenager in high school. Oh, not me. No, not me at all. And see, this is one of the points that Sass brings out in the book, is that we learn our work ethic from our parents, from those who are around us. My mother was of the attitude that I did not need a summer job. Summer jobs were for poor children, and we weren't poor. Summer jobs were for children whose parents didn't give them a $25 a week allowance for absolutely doing nothing, for just existing, like my mom did. I had a pool pass. I should use it. She bought me a pool pass. That's what summer was for, relaxing, going on vacation. If you have a job, we're not going to be able to go down the shore because you're going to have to work. I get paid vacation. You're not going to. Avoid work at all costs was my mother's mantra. What else did I learn from my mother about work? Well, I learned from a very young age that she hated her job, absolutely hated it, took no joy in it. The only reward she got from her job was the paycheck and the benefits. She had to support me and my sickly grandmother, and she did that, but she hated every minute of it. I learned from my mother that jobs were bad, that they were a horrible thing that adults had to do every day to buy stuff, to support themselves. But that if I could avoid it, I should avoid it at all costs. And of course, that turned into, as I got older, finding a good man. That's how I was raised, guys. I love my mom. My mom loved me. but she did me no favors. Find a good man. And by a good man, she didn't mean a kind man, a man who would treat me well, respect me. She meant a man who could provide for me, to take care of me, because this is the message I got, I was not capable of taking care of myself. Not little Paula. She basically said, I'm going to take care of you till you meet that good man, and then he will take care of you. God forbid you should inconvenience yourself by taking care of yourself. I remember when I was dating, and I was in my late 20s, early 30s, before I met my husband. I was dating a man that my mother was just in love with. I wasn't in love with him. He was very abusive and very controlling, but he was from a very wealthy, prominent family in our town. He was very rude to me, did not respect me, but my mother adored him, told him to call her mom. She wanted me to marry him, not because he was a good husband, he was going to be a good man and treat me well, but because he would be able to buy me things. I wouldn't have to work. I wouldn't have to have my own job. I wouldn't have my own money. And maybe she even liked a little bit that he was controlling because she wouldn't have to worry. Just as she always wanted to control my every move. When I was 18, I wanted to go to New York that summer and audition. I wanted to be an actress. That was my real goal. And I was a good actress. I did community theater here in Lancaster, where the newspapers, I had a fairly small role, but it was a pivotal role in the play. And the newspapers pointed me out that at my young age, I was 17 when I did the play, how poised I was, that my diction was good. I was a good actress. But when I told my mother I wanted to go to New York, just maybe on the weekend, stay in a hotel and do some auditions, set up auditions, she told me I wasn't good enough. I wasn't going to make it. New York's a dangerous place. This was before 9/11, by the way. New York's dangerous. What she really meant, even though what I heard was I'm not good enough, I'm not capable, she was afraid to lose control of me, to send me to New York. She was scared because she did not want me out of her sight. She wanted to know where I was every second of every minute of every day. And that continued into my 30s, which is not normal. And I have a theory about that too. See, my mother was never on her own. She never had her own place. She never had to fend just for herself. She always lived with her parents, then her husband, then her parents again, her mother, and then me. We lived with my grandmother after my grandfather died, and my mother divorced. Probably because my father couldn't stand living with my grandmother, which, believe me, I understand, because I couldn't stand it. But my mother had never been on her own completely. And I think part of why she wanted me close, she wanted me under her roof, was so she could protect me, which is obsessive, but also so she wouldn't be alone. Now, I was responsible for nothing when I lived with her, which again did me no favors. She paid my car insurance bill because I didn't want to spend my money on car insurance. I wanted to spend my money on fun things, clothes, jewelry, going out to bars, which she hated, but yeah. And anytime she would try to rein in, well, maybe you should pay for that yourself, I'd be like, wow, you know what? One of my friends is thinking about getting an apartment and she needs a roommate. Maybe I'll move in with her and be out on my own. Oh, wait. No, I can pay that for you. It's okay. I got a speeding ticket one time, and I was incensed $30 speeding ticket. Oh my God. You know, I had plans for the weekend. I needed that 30 bucks. I put the ticket on the table, dining room table. Mom said, you have to pay that in 7 days. I'm like, no, I'm not going to pay it. Well, you have to. I'm like, no, I'm just not going to pay it. So she paid it. Now, that was not the right message. As Sass says, we have to let our children go. We have to let them make mistakes and suffer the consequences. My mother should have not paid that ticket. I guess I must be growing up. And then I would have suffered the consequences. I remember one time my car was in the shop. And so I told her I was going to call into work and tell them I wouldn't be in for the next 2 days. She said, why? I said, I don't have a car. How am I going to get to work? She drove me to work and picked me up like I was a school kid. Instead of saying to me, I will drive you over to the rental car place. You'll rent a car. And do you know I am 54 years old and I have never rented a car and I don't know how to? I don't know how to rent a car. Now, is that shame on me or is it shame on the way I was raised? You don't have your car, I'll take care of it. Oh, and by the way, my mother paid the mechanic's bill too. Because it was inconvenient for me to use my hard-earned money that I worked at a job I also hated to pay a mechanic's bill because I had better things to do with my money, like go out for dinners with my girlfriends or buy clothes or video games or VHS tapes of movies. I had better things to do with my money than be responsible for paying to repair my car. Not something I'm proud of, by the way, but it is interesting. Health insurance, rent, electric bill, cable bill, water bill, heating bill. Adult children living with their parents. If you are a parent who has an adult child living with you, or you are an adult living with your parents, do you have to pay any of these bills? You should. I never did when I lived with my mom. Never. But you should, and I should have. Because when you move back in with your parents, when you are an adult, or you never leave your parents' house, I mean, come on. How long is your mom supposed to take care of you? Do you get up every morning and mom has breakfast on the table? You come home at night, there's dinner on the table. You put your dirty laundry on the washer and mom does your laundry for you. You get up from the table and let mom do the dishes and you go and watch mom's TV on mom's cable box. And then you take your shower using mom's hot water. And you snuggle under the sheets that mommy washed for you. And you have no responsibility whatsoever. You exist, so therefore you are entitled to be cared for the rest of your life as long as your mother's alive. What's going to happen to you when your mother dies? I had to grow up real quick when my mother died. Because while my mother was alive, I always knew that no matter what happened to us, this is even after I met my husband, Jason, that anything that happened to us, I could call my mom and I'd have a check the next day. I don't think that's the way it should work. When I needed dental work done, I was with my husband. We didn't have a lot of money. But I called my mom and I said, well, it's going to be $3,000. We don't have $3,000, Mom, so I think I'm just going to have the teeth pulled. Again, I knew how to push the buttons. Pulling teeth to my mother was anathema. It was horrible. You didn't pull teeth. So she paid the bill. What she should have done was said, I'm going to pay this bill and you will pay me back. You can pay me back in a month, you can pay me back in a year, but you will pay me back. It's a loan, not a gift. Gosh, I must be growing up. Too bad it only took 54 years. My mom always wanted to be in control of me, and I understand that to a point. It was very embarrassing as an adult having to call home, knowing that in my house, living with my mom, I was not an equal, even though I was well over 21. One time I was at a party and my mom wasn't particularly thrilled with the people I was hanging out with, and she was probably right. But again, adult, my choice, suffer consequences if there are any. My responsibility, right? Oh no. Mom showed up at the door saying it was time for me to come home. I was 29 years old. See, not cool. Yet my mother was the real adult in the household. She made sure that was known. She didn't call me if she was going to be late coming home from work. She didn't call me if she was playing cards with my aunt and it was 3 in the morning. But I had a call. I had to let her know where I was, who I was with, and what time I was going to be home. And if I was going to be 10 minutes late, I had a call because she was waiting up. And I'm talking about a 30-year-old adult having to report in to mommy. She did me no favors. And because now I know that this was all wrong, well, I guess I'm growing up. Finally, after 54 years. The women I now admire the most are women with careers. Women who, even though they may be married, that if anything happens to their husband or they end up getting a divorce, their life will go on because they can support themselves. They don't need their husband's money. Sadly, there are even men right now who live off of their wives' money, who can't support themselves without their wife taking care of them. That's sad too. For you parents out there who might see yourselves as being these little helicopter parents, afraid to let go, to let your children make mistakes and suffer the consequences and learn from their mistakes. Please remember some of my stories, my personal stories. Think of the fact that I don't sleep well at night when I think of, God forbid, if something happens to my husband, because I can't make enough money even with a full-time job at my age and with my job experience to support myself in this house. Can't do it. We would have trouble. I would have trouble. And we can't be teaching our young people that they are entitled to have someone else come in and take care of things for them when things go wrong. That's not raising a responsible adult. There are parents out there who worry, what's going to happen to my 40-year-old child if I die? Who will take care of them? Well, you know what? Your 40-year-old child should be able to take care of themselves. It is the failure of a parent when a child becomes Peter Pan, but it is also the failure of that child who should put down their foot and say, you know what, Mom? I need to be on my own. Or, you know what, Mom? I want to give you some money toward the household expenses, even if the mom is like, no, 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 no. This is your home. I'm your mother. I love you. No, Mom, here's the money. I want you to have it. Or, Mom, tonight I'm cooking dinner. I'm doing the dishes. And for God's sake, do your own bloody laundry. I have an analogy. Ben Sass did an analogy, which is good too. Training wheels on a bike. You know, when we're young, when we start to learn to ride a bike, we have training wheels. And once the training wheels come off, we know how to ride a bike. You don't put the training wheels back on. And yet, my mom and many other parents out there who are raising childish adults, they, once their children become 18, they put training wheels back on. Because God forbid their child should ever be inconvenienced with real life. with a job, with supporting themselves, with paying their own bills, being responsible for their own laundry, and for what they eat. A 70-year-old woman should not be cooking dinner 5 or 6 nights, 7 nights a week for her 40-year-old daughter or her 35-year-old son. That's ridiculous. My analogy that I thought of is, yes, we want to be loving parents. Everyone wants their children to be able to come to mom and dad when they need something, when they're in trouble. But what you want to do as a parent is be a spotter. You don't want to be holding the weight. You see what I'm saying? My mom always carried the weight. Instead, she should have been the spotter. She should have let me go to New York. Maybe even fronted me some money to stay in a hotel. Or rent a cheap-ass apartment or figure it out for myself. But if I was willing to go to New York and audition, she should have supported it. And when I failed, if I had failed, I knew I could always come home. Well, at least I tried. But see, my mom didn't even want me to try. She wanted me to go to work every day, go to church on Sunday, come home, eat dinner with her, watch TV with her, and go to bed. And hopefully, somehow, by just going to church and work, meet the perfect man who could take care of me. My mom got remarried when I was 39. When I was 35. And I was with my husband. And I often ask myself, would my mother have gotten married if I had not had my husband? Would she have told this man who she was in love with and wanted to marry, well, who's going to take care of Paula? Yeah, who's going to take care of my 35-year-old daughter if I get married and have my own house? And the funny thing is, after my mother did get married, she wasn't as hovering as she used to be. Now, I think if I had been living in this house alone or in my own apartment, she might have been. But now that she had her own life, she had a husband, he had his kids, he had a grandson, she had her own life to live, which she never had before. She wasn't as super involved in mine. The calls got shorter. Sometimes I didn't talk to her every day like I used to. And that's interesting. And it says a lot about our dynamic before she met her husband. And we were living together in this house, not as equals, but as mommy and little girl. It was because I was her life. And that's very sad for her too. And there were a lot of things, that's a whole other show actually, that led to my mother being in this position. And part of it is the way she was raised, and her mother, and how her mother treated her as an adult. And it's a vicious circle. And so look, at the end of the day, this is a good book. It is for parents, especially parents of children who are starting to get that idea that they are entitled to your loving care and to have everything done for them and to never be inconvenienced by the responsibilities of real life as long as you're around to take care of it for them. I strongly advise you to read this book, and I also ask you to always be the spotter, but let your children carry the weight. Political Paula, out.